What is up, ladies and gentlemen, man here. Welcome back to the channel. Today's a rest day, and that's why I thought this is actually an ideal opportunity to get a video done which I wanted to make for a long time, and that is the review of one of my favorite bouldering shoes, or if not the favorite bouldering shoe, I should say, the 510 Team. So let's pick it apart. And because this is a gear review video, I want to start it with the usual clarification. Nobody paid me to make this video. I'm not sponsored by 510 or anything. I bought all my 510 pairs for the regular price myself, and I just want to share my honest opinions about this shoe because I'm using it for a long time, and I feel that I can help some of you guys out there maybe who can think about buying this shoe, or what are the pros and cons and stuff like that. And to achieve that, I will divide this video into roughly two parts. One is the outer look of the shoe, what are its features, what is the material and stuff like that, and secondly we will go into the performance of the shoe, what I think are the strengths and weaknesses, terrain and outdoor, indoor and stuff like that. So yeah, let's start with the outer features, I would say. So first of all, I also want to clarify that at the moment I don't have any new 510 Team shoes. All the pairs and all the models that you're gonna see in this video are already used, and some to quite a high extent actually. And all my models that I have are in the size 42 EU, which is also the first interesting point about 510. You don't need to downsize them a lot compared to your street shoe size. My street shoe size is 42 EU, which means that they are exactly the same size as my street shoe size. So for example, when we compare this to the Solution here, I bought the Solution at size 39 EU, so at Las Sportivas I actually have to scale down three full sizes actually. And I have the feeling that it's still too big, okay? This shoe, after it's stretched out a little bit, it's still, I could go even lower than that, okay? And here I have my Tenaya Oasi, which I think I have in 38 3/4 size EU. So as you can see here with the Tenaya shoes, the same story. You have to downsize quite a lot. And since this is all synthetic stuff, by the way, if you're caring about that or anything, the shoe is also vegan, so really anybody can buy this shoe. This is all synthetic stuff, and that means also that the shoe is not gonna stretch a lot. As you can see, we've got a lot of rubber on there. The shoe is almost completely rubberized, which I like very much, to be honest. Just at the upper top here is this kind of elastic thing here, which helps slipping in and out. And we've also got this little loop attached up there, which is also quite practical actually for slipping in and out. And yeah, a fully rubberized shoe almost. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the sole. The rubber they used is this so-called Stealth HF rubber, according to 510's website, which I like a lot, to be honest. It's also very thin. They say it's only 2.5 millimeters thin at the toe tip. I have the feeling it's a little bit more, and then it goes to the back, and it's getting a little bit thinner even onto the heel hook, and it's also one continuous stripe of rubber, as you can see, in contrast to the Solutions, for example, where we have two patches of rubber separated from each other. And this is also very good for the downturn, as we're gonna talk about later. But anyway, as the rubber continues to go back to the heel hook, it's getting even thinner, I have the feeling. And this whole thinness, of the rubber of the 510 Team, is kind of the characteristic feature of it, which gives it this kind of super sensitive feel when you're climbing with it, okay? So you have the feeling that you really can move your toes freely, and you can really grab onto these footholds, especially in very overhanging terrain and stuff like that. So that's so much about the feel of the shoe. As you can see, we've got here also a fully covered outer side of the heel hook, which is also a significant difference to a lot of other models. For example, with the Tenaya Oasi, as you can see, you have here this little patch of not rubberized outer heel hook, and this can be a little bit unpractical on some heel hooks where you really have to hook on your lateral heel feel. Here you can lose a little bit of friction and maybe slip off or something. But here this is not the case because, again, fully rubberized. The same is true with the toe hook, which is, in my opinion, one of the most unmatched toe hooks in the climbing shoe world. I really like it a lot. Look at this huge, this is really a huge patch of rubber which is covering the toe hook, and this gives you a lot of flexibility into when it comes to different shapes and stuff like that to nestle your toes in and so on. Okay, so it's really nice toe hook compared, for example, to the Tenaya Oasi, where you have only this small little patch here. And again, here you have a spot without a rubber. In my Tenaya Oasi review, I criticized this pretty much a lot because it's so completely unnecessary to leave this open, you know, and it's causing actually a lot of trouble on a lot of heel hooks, according to my experience at least, because here you have very little friction and you're gonna slip off there quite frequently. Compared to the Solution, here again we've got a bigger patch of rubber at the toe hook, but still, when you compare it with the 510, the 510 wins in my opinion. Okay, this is a really massive surface for toe hooking, and yeah, this is really practical. It's very thin as well, so you have a lot of feeling on there. One more thing I want to mention regarding the thinness of the rubber, because as you might assume, because the rubber is so thin and sensitive, it's gonna wear out super quickly and you're gonna have to buy a new pair very soon. But this is not the case according to my experience. My 510 teams always lasted me longer than my La Sportivas, for example, although their rubber is a lot thinner. I'm assuming that this is because of the mixture that they are using. It has a lot of friction despite that, this HF stealth thing, but it's not wearing out very quickly compared to, for example, the Vibram soles of the Sportiva shoes. I think this is the XXS Grip 2 that we have here. We can see it here in this logo, and I'm using this shoe for only like, I don't know, maybe 1 month or something. I think I started using it during the Ciorana trip, and as you can see, it's already starting to get really chossy and fuzzed up down there at the toe tip, and this is what wears them out so quickly because it's such a soft mixture, I think, with these Sportiva shoes. So yeah, I really don't know what I should think about that. In any case, I can say this 510 gives you more feeling in the beginning already, and it's gonna wear out very slowly actually. So let's say a few words about the general shape of the shoe. As you can see, it has a lot of downturn. It's a very aggressive type of model here, and this also gives a lot of hints already in which terrain this might work the best, which is of course the overhang. But anyway, what I want to mention regarding the downturn is, although the rubber is so thin and you might think, okay, it's gonna ruin the downturn quite quickly, it actually conserves the downturn very, very well compared to all the other models that I've tried. Let's see, for example, here the Solution again. It comes, as you know, with a lot of downturn in the beginning, and already this downturn, which you can see here in this big toe box, it kind of flattened out very much, you know, just from using it for like, I don't know, 1 month or so. And this model here, I think I used it for half a year, and it still kept up its aggressive shape. Okay, it has the toe box is really pointy still. And another thing that I want to mention is the narrowness of the shoe, the general narrowness. So this is, I think, one of the most critical arguments when it comes to buying this shoe. For a lot of people, the shoe is simply too narrow. People with a wider foot, who prefer wider toe boxes, might not just fit in so well into this shoe. So when we compare it here to the Solution, for example, as we can see, the Solution has a lot wider toe box there. And maybe that's even the case why I don't like the Solution so much. I actually prefer the 510 team still, although my models of the 510 team are a lot older than my newly bought Solution shoes, which I just wanted to try out because everybody has them and everybody is so convinced about them. But actually I like the 510 more, maybe because I have a very narrow foot. Okay, so let's see if we can get my feet on the camera here. It's a little bit blurry there, but I guess you get the point. And another thing that I want to mention is, as you can see, we don't have this classical climbing shoe pointiness on the toe box, which we have, for example, here at the Solution. We have a very, very rounded toe box actually, and I have the feeling that this is also giving the shoe a very sensitive character, because it's like it kind of assists you with grabbing with all of your different tiny little toes in there, okay? Whereas on the classic Sportiva models, for example, you can only really grip with your big toe, okay? With your biggest toe, I don't know, with your thumb toe, so to say, because this is what sits up here, and this is what grabs onto the footholds basically. In contrast to here, where you can use not only the big toe but also the middle toe, the pointer toe, and the ring finger toe, however they call it, they are sitting in here. So that's actually quite awesome, and I like this a lot. One disadvantage that could arise from this is that this shoe is very bad at pockety footholds, because in pockety footholds you need to have this pointy toe box to get into the foothold itself, So after looking at my notes, I see that we've got two more things to cover, and that is the heel hook and the closure system. Let's start with the heel hook, the more important thing. I already mentioned that it's fully closed on the outer lateral side, which is awesome. The whole heel hook is also just in the same character of the whole shoe, very, very soft. And as you can see as well, the shape of the heel hook is kind of specific, kind of characteristic for the shoe, and very pointy. When we compare this, for example, to the Solution here, we have pretty much a right angle, a 90-degree angle of the heel box, and a very, this is a rock solid heel box there. Here we have a very, very pointy heel hook, and it's very, very soft. As you can see, I can mush this around here with my fingers pretty easily, and some people don't like it. In fact, actually a lot of people don't like that, because the heel has to fit your personal foot heel very perfectly. If you develop any airspace in there, it might happen to you very frequently that you're pulling your shoe off your heel on very aggressive heel hooks actually. So you want to make sure that when you try this shoe on, that the heel fits very well onto your personal heel, because if you're developing too much airspace, you can be almost sure that this is going to happen to you sooner or later when the hook gets more slippy inside, you're sweating a little bit and all this kind of stuff. So apart from that, I can say that because the heel hook is also very thin and pointy, it actually allows you to become really precise at your heel hooks. And I had this a lot already when you have to heel hook this kind of some kind of slot-like features or something like that, where this fits really perfectly in. That this is actually my go-to shoe for, this was actually my go-to shoe for a couple of problems where I had to place a really precise heel hook. Here the super classical contrast again to the Solution, which has a very ball-like shaped heel box there, as you can see in comparison. Now they actually look quite the same, but here you can see it very well. Very pointy up here and very, solid and ball-like in here. So this is, I think, more for the rough climbing style. You simply want to slap your heel hook on there onto this surface, and it has to stick. And then the Solution is probably the more the go-to shoe for that. For the precise heel hooks, in my opinion, this one can be a real game changer actually sometimes. Closure system, I really like it a lot. In my opinion, this shoe just as well could be a slipper, okay, just like that, because this is also very elastic up here. You simply slip in and out, easy mode. And this is also why this shoe is such an awesome bouldering model, I think, because in bouldering you have to put on and off your shoes quite frequently. But in addition to that, they also give you one Velcro strip, which is kind of awesome, which gives you a little bit more tightness onto your instep up there, and also helps to kind of protract, or I should say retract your heel hook here onto your heel, it's gonna give them a little bit more stability. And also what I like a lot is that they've supported this thing here with one solid piece of metal I hope you can see that it's very round. And this leads to the fact that this Velcro strip doesn't ruin itself after some time when you put it on, off, on, off, on, off. Here we have the opposite to that on the Solution, where these little bands here are supported by these kind of sharp metal rings on this leather here. And what happens after some time, of course, because this is such a thin stripe of fabric, it's gonna ruin itself after some time. Okay, it's gonna get ripped open, and then once it starts to rip open a little bit, then you're gonna rip it more and more and more, and at some point you have this thing in your hands and you can't close the shoe anymore. You have to repair it yourself or improvise something to get it working again. And this is not gonna happen. This is not going to happen with this shoe here. However, with this shoe, some other stuffs are going to happen. For example, and I don't want to hide this from you because I want to make an as complete gear review here as possible. This is a classical thing for the 510 team. Okay, as you can see here in the frontal camera, the area close to this lateral loop here is gonna rip all open basically very frequently on the 510s. First it's gonna affect the rubber, and then it's also gonna affect the fabric inside. And the reason why this happens is the situation of this adduction loops, okay, this adduction loop situation. As you can see, we've got one here at the back and one on the side, which is different from classical models like the Sportivas, where we have here both a little bit laterally kind of symmetrical from the middle, which is in my opinion the much better system. Here you can see we have one on the back and one on the side, and when you're pulling your shoe on, it's kind of obvious that you're creating these not ideal forces when you want to slip in. So with time, slipping in and out, you're gonna rip open here this rubber, then it starts to gonna rip down, and then you're gonna rip the fabric open again. All because of this suboptimal adduction loop situation. 510, you could have done better there. This would be actually the perfect shoe if you wouldn't have done these adduction loops in such a strange way. I only can suppose that they did it because they wanted to avoid that an adduction loop on the side here gets in the way of very lateral, outer lateral heel hooks. But now, what happens now is that you're gonna rip open this little fabric here on the rear loop here, and then it's gonna lay down onto your very frontal heel hooks all the time. So what I have to do with a very old model like this is the oldest model that I actually still possess, and I actually kept it so that I can show you where it's going bad after some time when you have the model for a very long time. Sooner or later it's gonna ruin a heel hook of yours because this is getting in between the rubber and the rock, and you're gonna simply slip off. So that's a bad thing here with this rear loop here. Because the sole is very thin, as I said already, the point where it's gonna go through at first will probably be your toe tip, as you can see here with this very old model here. And once you got that, there's really not a lot you can do. You have to replace the shoe, or you can do something that I've tried recently and re-sole it. And this is my resoled model of the 510 team. As you can see, it kept its downturn quite well, surprisingly. As you can see, they switched out here all this front rubber as well, and they gave it a really sturdy sole, like I think 3.5 millimeters or 4 even or something. The same materials as this is, I think, HF Stealth rubber, and I like it a lot. This is becoming actually my new go-to shoe. It has a little bit more support because it's a little bit stiffer than the original 510 team, but for the boulders I sent recently, it was actually quite practical, and this is also a very good shoe for route climbing all of a sudden. So I like it a lot, but sooner or later I have to get a new pair of 510 teams for the really limit bouldering actually that I want to do. But yeah, I think we are done with the outer features and characteristics, materials and stuff like that of the shoe. Time to proceed to topic number 2. Oh my god, that's gonna be a very long review. Which is performance. I started with testing the shoe on relatively flat terrain. As you can see, we've got this slab-like wall in our gym so that I can practice some smearing. And although the performance was not particularly bad, I have to say, I wouldn't use this shoe for this terrain because it's quite intense on your toes and the shoe is very soft, which means you don't get a lot of support on your toe tips. At the same time, you've got quite some downturn, and this results in a quite unpleasant bending of your toes and your foot, which is probably not very healthy. And apart from that, I think it wears out the shoe quite quickly. Although to a lesser extent the same was the case for more vertical and less slabby terrain, as long as I stepped bigger footholds, it wasn't much of a problem because the leverage on your toe tips is not super high in this case. But as soon as footholds got smaller, I could definitely feel that I missed the support of a harder, stiffer shoe with a thicker rubber, like the Tenaya Oasi for example. That doesn't mean that the performance was particularly bad. I could still step very tiny stuff and not slip off, but the problem was that it was very exhausting on the toes and the shoe after some time. And that's because, as I said in earlier videos, the more slabby the terrain, the more weight actually reaches the toe tips, and the more a stiff shoe with lots of support will pay off in terms of comfort and long-term performance compared to a soft shoe. Alright, let's move on to steeper terrain. As you might have guessed it, this is the playground where the 510 team shines. In my opinion, the performance on overhangs is just incredible. Now less weight reaches the toe tips, so the softness of the shoe becomes extremely helpful for actively grabbing and pulling on bigger and also smaller footholds. As I mentioned previously, on steeper terrain, footholds tend to become bigger, especially in the climbing gym. Thus, it is very helpful if your shoe actually allows you to really nestle your toes in as deeply as possible between the footholds and the wall. In my experience, that is something you actually only learn if you climb in such a shoe for a longer time. You can of course also try something like these barefoot shoes and stuff like that. Anyway, one of the coolest things about this shoe, I think, is that it teaches you to really use your toes to your advantage by literally grabbing and pulling on footholds actively instead of just slapping your feet onto them and hoping that they don't slip off. So let's take a quick look at the hooks of this shoe. I personally like the heel a lot, a big plus for the fully closured rubber on the outside. This is a real bonus in terms of friction when it comes to more lateral heel hooks. Pay attention, however, that your heel really fits well when trying the shoe in the store. Otherwise, you might pull yourself off the shoe when you're pulling on more aggressive heel hooks. And you might have to get used to the softness of the heel in the beginning, especially when you're coming from a harder shoe. As I said, on some hooks it will be of an advantage, and on others it might be a disadvantage. About the toe hook, I can only say amazing. I think it is unreached in the climbing shoe world. A huge surface area covered with not too thick rubber for sensitive and precise toe hooking. Lots of friction, simply awesome. And that concludes the performance analysis of my 510 team climbing shoe review here. So yeah, that's really all I have to say. I just would like to summarize everything here real quickly for you. Regarding the materials and stuff used, it's entirely synthetic. Don't downsize the shoe very much here. We've got a very rubberized shoe. It's almost like a rubber sock, very thin rubber there, so you get a lot of feeling in your toes, a lot of grabbing in your footholds. Very nice toe hook here. Kind of controversial heel hook, I would say. Some like it, some don't. I personally like it a lot. Then we've got the adduction loop situation, which is kind of a little bit of a disadvantage of the shoe, kind of a bumper. And the Velcro strip here is very nice to put it on and off, and this makes the shoe very practical for bouldering, and also this rubber thing here makes it easy to slip in and out. When it comes to performance, as the shoe actually already suggests, we've got a lot of downturn and a lot of feeling on your toes. That means you will get the best out of this shoe in the overhang, when you don't get a lot of weight onto your footholds but actually have to kind of pull on them. You have to kind of hold the body strength. Again, some hooks really favor the 510 team because it's fully disclosured, very lateral hooks especially, and when you have to hook some kind of slotty things and stuff like that. Toe hook, very nice on toe hooks. Yeah, so not so good for slabby and for vertical terrain because it lacks the support. Doesn't necessarily mean that soft shoes are bad for that, but this is a soft shoe with a lot of downturn. And a lot of downturn is in general very unpractical when you have to step on slabby stuff. Okay, a lot of downturn, which doesn't go away on this shoe, it actually stays in the downturn, is very practical for the overhang. So here you have it, performs the best in the overhang, probably on overhanging boulders, where you have to be really precise on your tiny little footholds in the overhang, and where if the foothold is bigger, you actually can get into the positiveness of the foothold and really pull on it to kind of hold the body strength. So much for the performance. I hope you got something from this climbing shoe review. Let me know down below about your opinions and your experiences maybe with this shoe. Maybe you have one yourself. And if you like the video, drop some likes and thumbs up, which is actually the same, but yeah, drop some likes because it always helps a lot. And yeah, in case you got convinced, by the way, you wanna purchase this shoe now and you wanna try it out, you will find, of course, as always with my gear reviews, a product link in the description. I can highly recommend it. I like it a lot. It's still my favorite shoe for bouldering, at least, even after performing, even after buying a considered bouldering powerhouse, the Solution. I'm not so convinced actually, but that might be because the toe box of the Solution is too wide for my feet. Actually, I prefer more narrow toe boxes. So yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you liked it, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Bye.